I think August, time working there. You remember Anyway, we're all here because we all have some memory of when Bussy had the tavern up front. It's, of course, still there. The original bar is still there, which is nice. The wall used to be lined with red, not leather, but probably pleather, plastic leather or something on the booths. And the steel door that you came through was the door that you came into the bookie. And basically as kids, Bonnie and I were pretty much protected from what the heck was going on. And believe me, there was a lot going on. Dad started by bootlegging vats of liquor that came into Canada. It would come down here in vats. He had a farm just over the border up in Wisconsin. And it was a working farm. The Joneses rented the farm, but one of the barns had a bottling works in it where they would bottle the booze. And basically, with all the resorts and stuff, he had a little deal going. You know, he made some good money selling bootleg booze during Prohibition. So, Dad was born in '05, so that gives you a little idea. Anyway, we're here not because of the running a little booze, but because of the bookie back here. And I was a little kid, and this was quite a place. It was all bricked in, no windows. There were tote boards on the walls with all the different racetracks and the different races. And this bar area was just a little window, and all these black phones you see. I guess somebody told us there were 30 phone lines coming in here back in the day. And that was, business was good. And not everybody came to the book here to place their boats. But Dad had guys he had people out on the streets, and they each had territories, and they would work with their customers. And when they get bets, they'd write it down, they'd collect the money, and then they'd call in the bets here to the bookie. And these, I knew these guys, but I didn't know their nicknames. There was Round Man, and there was Cigar, and there was Popeye, and nobody went by their right name, including my dad. But it was just kind of funny. All of a sudden, they started coming together like, oh, Popeye, he was Tommy. I knew them by their real names, but of course, when they placed bets and called their bets in, it was up to them to collect the bets. It was up to them to pay off the bets. And I think back then it was only 5% that the house would take. That's my memory. I think it's a little more than that if you're running a sports book these days. But anyway, that was the deal. And when I was a little kid with these tote boards with all of the races on them, I would get up on my uncle's shoulders. And if there was a horse scratched, like in the 9th race at Hialeah, I would get up there with the chalk and erase it off the chalkboard. That was my job. And because I was the older, the firstborn, I was Dad's little sidekick. My sister was the favorite. I don't know why. She was the favorite. But I was the love child. They had to get married. Just the way it goes. But Dad used to take me around back in the day and all these resorts around the Chain of Lakes and stuff, make some collections, and if he thought there might be some trouble, he'd take me with, because they'd never mess with a guy with a kid. So I was his bodyguard and didn't even know it. I just knew I grew up on a bar stool, making collections. There's a million stories. I know my sister has some. And we invite all of you that have some stories or some memories of back in the day and the bookie and so on and so forth. If you wouldn't come eventually up to the microphone and share them, that'd be awesome. This is my favorite sister, Mother and Dad's favorite.
Hi everyone. As Char's already told you, I'm the youngest, the prettiest, the favorite. What can I say? But I want to thank everybody. It was like April of this year when Kent, my husband, and I came over to the lodge to have lunch. And I'm watching people walk through something. I go, what are they doing? So we came back and I kept walking back and walking back and I walked into this room. And it was like I was 8 years old again. It was like, oh my gosh.
It does exist.
Immediately. What?
It does exist.
Yeah. And I went home and called my sister and I said, Char, we've got to do something. This is a piece of Antioch history. We were a part of it. And it's just in the moment that you have to capture it and you have to enjoy it. So I can't say enough about come on up. Share these wonderful stories for us. We really, really need them to continue this with our families on for years and years and years to come. Come on out. Who's going to be the first one? Dennis?
My stories are all secondhand, Bonnie.
Oh, okay. Well, there are a lot of... Come on, Ainsley. There's a lot of secondhand stories, too.
I think Jim has
Oh,
some.
hi, Jim. Come on up.
Well, I'm gonna try. I'm bashful, but
Just before you go, Jim, I want to thank Ainsley.
Thank you.
I want to thank Ainsley Wonderling, the Antioch Historical Society, helping me put together this slideshow. There's many, many pictures of Char and my family, of the Kuhlmans, too, and of old Antioch, and it's just wonderful. It's cherishing. It's just as memorable. It's exciting. Here, Jim Cole.
I don't know if you remember Ed Nabar. Over here?
Yep. There you go.
I don't know if you remember Ed Nabar, but she worked in the drugstore next door.
Edit Drum.
In Drum. Ed the Drum, thank you. And I guess she heard the bombing, and she had to lay in bed for a week to recover from it. When you'd come in the front door off of Main Street, it looked like just a normal tavern, but they had to help with Regal China next door, or Rexall drugstore next door. You never thought that this was back in here. I was in here probably when I was 6 or 7 years old. My dad had a resort out in Channel Lake for 10 years, and then he came into town in '58. But yes, I remember the bookie. Come on, people.
Come on, people. Come on.
I broke the ice.
I got some modern stories that Char doesn't want to hear about, but anyway, the point being is that, you know, I was born on North Avenue here. When this place was bombed, that door over there was exploded. I was in I don't know what age it was, but I was in a bunk bed. And it blew me out of the bed. And I was on North Avenue, that's what happened here. And like he was saying, next door, every window in Reeves Drugstore was blown out. And no damage, the building didn't get bothered at all. But anyway, that is what happened. But I'm going to move up to the 60s, okay? Now, this is where Char says, I don't want to hear the story. Now, anyway, for some reason, when I was in high school, some young lady come up to me and wanted to go to prom or something, or go out. And it ended up, I took her out for a while and went to the prom. And they had a pink Lincoln.
Yes, we did.
Lincoln Continental.
And anyway, whenever we went to the prom, had this pink Lincoln, and everybody was racing back from Chicago. I think I had it up to 70, but it scared the hell out of me as I'm driving this thing. If I ever crashed it up, you know what Pop would do. He would have me hanging from the rafters here.
Yeah, people.
But when I I was going with her for a short while, and I think it was when she went to college. I was about 1960, something like that, and I was talking to her about getting engaged. And I don't think she remembers that, but the bottom line is that, anyway, I think we talked about it. We're going to talk to her folks, you know, and so I went to her dad, see, and she's out there like Thanksgiving coming back. I was going to get engaged in Christmas. And so anyway, he says, you can't afford to take care of my daughter. So anyway, I got this ring.
Vernon said that several times.
Anyway, when I was getting ready to go into service about that same time, he gave me it didn't give me the ring, I bought it from him when he had the jewelry store over there. He said, get the hell out of town. And that's what happened.
Okay, that's a good reading.
Well, Vernon, I can't wait to top that story. Because the difference between you and me, Vernon, is when I proposed to her, she said yes. That was 51 years ago. Beautiful. And 52 years. Sorry about that. I lost somewhere. But I can tell you that knowing the Kuhlman family and a lot of the relatives are here, but Bussy was one of the most outstanding people I've ever known in my life, and we became really good friends. He shared a lot of stories with me, and he's really, really a special person. Those of you who knew him know what I'm talking about. He was a unique person, and the stories that Char can tell about him, because Char really was his sidekick. When she's a little, they used to call her Cue Ball Kuhlman.
I know.
She must have been a little sparse on the top, I don't know, but they went all around together. I mean, they were really favorites, and the stories that fell out of that, plus other stories, I'm still reminded of that. So is Bonnie, because we still have a slot machine in our living rooms, of course. Bonnie's got a quarter one, I got a dime one. Bussy used to have a garage out here with a couple hundred of them in there. I don't know what he did with all those things, but that was a special guy, and it's nice to see some of the people around here who knew him. So that's my story to tell. Too bad, Vernon, you lost.
I got a quick one. You probably got more than I Hi, everybody. I'm Ainsley Brooke Wonderling, and my dad was Bill Brooke, and my stories are secondhand or third-hand or whatever.
Or just made up.
Or made up.
Bring a little closer to the mic.
Once upon a time, the state's attorney was being sent over to investigate Bussy. And he didn't want to come into the bar by himself for lunch because he knew he'd stand out like a sore thumb. So I went to my dad and he said, will you go and have lunch with me over at the tavern? I got to go see what's going on over there. They think they'll run a book in the back room. So my dad said, sure, he'd go with him to lunch. And I went over and sat out in front of one of the booths, and there was a steady stream of people in and out through the front door, constantly walking back past them. And they got through with lunch, and he said, well, Bill, did you see anything out of the ordinary, anything going on? And my dad said, no, there was nothing out of the ordinary. That's what it was every day at lunch. And so they got up and left, and I don't think the state's attorney really wanted to get involved and bother Bussy with his business. And I have one other story, and that was, of course, also third hand, but my mother used to tell the story about a very prim and proper little lady in town who was actually Joan Larson's mother, Mrs. Miller, and how she would stand out on the street and look both ways and make sure that nobody was coming before she dashed in to place her bet. So there were a lot of people that wanted to participate but did not want to be recognized. So those are the only two stories that I have. So I'll pass the microphone off to Mr. Cunningham. And I think you need to identify Mr. Burdick as the first, because he had told me
Okay, I'm on there.
Okay,
As a little boy, probably 8, 9, 10 years
Hold the
old,
mic up to your mouth.
my father was in the trucking business. So every time there was going to be a raid on Antioch, of course, the slot machines had to be taken out. So Bussy would call my father, and we'd come with the truck, and we'd load it up and take a ride until the raid was over with, and then we would bring them back. Well, when we brought them back, Bussy was always there, and he always handed me a handful of nickels. And he would tell my dad, have the kid play that machine. So while I was playing that machine, of course, it would hit the jackpot. And then I would go home and my mother would say, where did you get all those nickels? Well, I never told her. But also, back in those days, there was a freight and express delivery out of the depot every morning, which my father had the contract. And every morning, there was a roll of papers, so big around, so long, and I would help my father, and I would come to that side door, knock on the door would open about that wide. Hand would come out, and I'd hand the bookie sheets to the person in charge in here, and the door would close, and I'd be on my way. And then every once in a while, when things would get hot, instead of coming here, the bookie sheets went across the street to Budstown, which I did the same. Knock on the door, and hand the sheets off. So, those were good old days in Antioch.
They were.
Okay.
Anybody else?
You're gonna have to forgive me, Mr. Cunningham there mentioned about the raids. My folks had the resort from 47 to 58. They bought it from Eddie Sorensen's father. My dad was in town. Radke had the barber shop, and Cap Radke was shaving my dad. Those were the days when you got a good shave. And my dad needed the glasses to see across the street. So he says, Cap, what's going on? He says, the militia is in town. It's a raid. I'll be back. I got
Little remembrances about raids and so on. When I was a kid, I was playing the Viper harp, and the Women of the Moose in Antioch always wanted me to play, and the Methodist Church wanted me to play. I got tired of it. We'd go out and try to hide on people so they couldn't get a hold of me. I couldn't play anyway. But anyway, the point being is the women would have me out there playing, and they enjoyed it. And all of a sudden, one year, I was in there playing, and there was these curtains the length of the building, like a tent, a white sheet going from the top of the ceiling to the floor. I thought, that's strange, they must be remodeling. So I'm playing, and this night, the husbands are with the wives. And you can see the husbands, get this guy out of here. You know, I said, I could feel it up there. You just, you shouldn't be here. So I'm sitting there, so I ended up with my song, and as soon as I'm done, they said, we're done for the night. They ripped the sheets, solid slot machine. The length of the building. You know why they wanted me out of there right now, Then they had a little story that happened right here that if anybody remembers Weasel. Weasel, I don't know if he took over right after Bussy got rid of it. Is that?
Yeah, he did.
Is that what happened? Anyway, Weasel takes over this tavern, proud as a peacock, like he always is. And he's up there, and I'm just say it's a daytime, and he's drinks going out. So two men come in with suits on, sat down at the bar, and he's happier than a lark, And these two guys are sitting at the very end of the bar up there, next to the window. They said, do you own that Cadillac out there? He said, oh yeah, he just bought it. He said, oh, I just got that. It's a beauty. He said, give me the keys. This is a stolen vehicle and we're taking it away. That really happened to him. The other one is like, I think Jim mentioned over here, when I was a kid, I'd walk in the front of Reeves over here. As soon as you open the door, there's slot machines right in the entrance. Every place was that way, and like he brought up about raids, and I think some of the people that have been here for years, a friend of mine, Jim Bowen, I went to school with, They lived about where the First National Bank is, or the new bank, whatever it's called now. He lived about there. Now, when there's a raid, all these guys would grab a slot machine from all these different businesses in town and run through the field over to Bound's house, all the way up 3 stories and put them in the attic. And as soon as the raid's over, they'd bring them all the way down. So I didn't know that, but Jim brought me up to the attic one time. We're upstairs, the 3rd floor, actually is above that. And he says, "Hey, do you see this? Open that closet up." I opened up and here's a stairwell going up. I said, "What the hell's that for?" You know, they said, "That's where we hide the slot machines." You know? So they went through a field, and behind here where the pig is and that was just a slough like. And they'd run through there with all these machines. You know? And what was I had one more story and I can't think of what it was. Some of the boys around town, can't think of the name, Webb.
Oh, yeah, the one, he lived on Victoria, what was his name?
Ray?
Tommy Griffin.
Tommy Griffin?
What's his name? Married to Webb.
Tommy Griffin.
Tommy Griffin. Tommy Griffin, if anybody remembers. I used to work, Red Murray was the supervisor of Antioch and had the Standard Oil Station where the florist shop is today. And my brother worked there, my cousin worked there, I worked there all through school. And you know, this was a great guy for the community. You know, he was like Bill Brooks. He was one of the guys. And in fact, I'll give you a little story there. Bill, it was who run the rescue squad? Holbeck, I think Rentner, and Red Murray. They went to church once a year at the Episcopalian church. Anyway, I can't think of the minister there. Father Hood. Father Hood would go by, walk downtown, past the gas station here, and he says, "You better have a good sermon this week, this Christmas." Every time he'd say it, he says, "I got a good sermon for you." So anyway, they all go down there. These 3 men, prime people of Antioch, sit in the front row. What do you think his sermon is going to be that day? People that come to church once a year. I don't think they ever pulled that in. But back to Tommy Griffin. Tommy Griffin, there was about 3 people that were big bookies in this town. I have no idea to this day what they did or didn't do. But at one time, when there was raids and stuff, they all went to Florida. You could go to Florida, sort of cool things down. When everything was quiet, they come back. So Tommy would bring he usually had an Oldsmobile, if I can remember right. He'd bring it to the station, wash it up and everything else, get it ready for me to go. You know, I got to go to Florida tomorrow or whatever. But that's what they did. They'd take off, come back, nothing happened. But they got out of the state. That's how they were allowed to do that. Couldn't touch them in Florida. You know, I think Bussy's a little place down in, what was the name? Marathon, yeah, okay. And he would disappear, I think, on occasion too.
We kind of needed to. We went on a lot of vacations.
True.
In your pajamas. In my PJs.
Yeah.
Quickly, in the middle of the night.
My wife's father was a man in this town for years, ran for supervisor, and he decided to go against the mob. This had to be probably the 30s or so, and he decides his Model T or whatever he's got out there, he's going to go against them and run booze against them, the beer. So he'd pack up the vehicle and he'd go down the road. Well, one night, the boys were standing out in the middle of the road with machine guns and said, you know, they blew all his tanks away and got rid of all the fuel, but they said, "You're not going to do this again." It's fortunate he lived. They didn't shoot him, but he didn't run booze from that on.
Let me have it again, please. One name that hasn't been mentioned today is Bernie Thompson.
Oh, yeah.
Bernie had the slots out in Lake Marie, Lake Catherine, and Channel Lake. And my folks had a 5, 10, and 15 cent, the dime, nickel, dime, and quarter slot machines. And when they first raided, they were able to keep the slot machines in the back rooms. Well, ours was kept in the woman's washroom, so whenever the door was open, you know, neither woman was in there. Bernie lived on Linden Lane. He had a beautiful, beautiful home. And he had the son Larry, Bernie Jr., Jack, and Jill. So I just thought I'd mention Bernie Thompson. You got history. Mabel Lou's here.
I just wanted to mention one thing. We talked about Bud Holtz. He had the tavern directly across the street. You know, everybody was involved. Everybody knew about it. Everybody protected everybody from the feds. So, but as my understanding is that there used to be a telephone over at Bud's, and it was a direct line over here to the bookie. So once again, as Shar said, you didn't have to be here at the bookie to place the bet. You could go over to Bud's and you picked up this phone and it was a direct line. But you kind of had to like dial it or, you know, dial it like you were dialing a number, just the pretense. But it would come over here. And you could place your bet and come over here, and if you win, you got the money. I see some other, Mary?
Can you, is that possible to bring that microphone around?
Oh, yeah, or if anybody else would like to.
It won't reach that far.
Oh, yeah, you're Jan. Can you turn that over, David?
My name is Jan Brick, and when I was a little kid, my best friend lived up above Buzzy's, as it was, but it was called Gaffy's.
Yes.
For some reason, I don't know, I just knew it as Gaffy's. And she had a hallway that went up the stairs, and there was a window. And we'd crawl out the window into the apartment building next door. And there was a door about 3 doors down, or maybe a door down. And we'd knock on the door and we'd watch the excitement. It was, when they opened up the door, there was a bunch of phones along the wall and chalkboards with all these names across the top of it. So somehow that building next door, and this was connected, and I don't know how that happened, but we had a lot of fun knocking on the door all the time. And watching them open it up and diving back through the window.
And getting a quarter?
Oh, yes, and Tommy Griffin used to give Jerry and I quarters because we'd be hanging around the back here. We'd play out here, we'd play ball against Reed's drugstore. And he'd come out and say, "You girls want to go to the show?" And he'd just go out and buy and give us money, and we'd go to the show and get lost. Oh, God. Yeah, and I remember meeting him with, there was, I don't know, do you remember the Dowlings?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Dowlings, and then, let's see, who else was there? Darlene's mother and my girlfriend's mother. They were coffee clutching along with Tommy Griffin and Karen Griffin. Mrs. Dowling. Yeah, Mrs. Dowling, and her oldest daughter was Darlene. Yeah. And we used to play cards in the hallway where they were all congregating up in this last apartment up in the other building.
Yeah.
You know, so I often wondered whatever happened to T-Bone.
Seems like we don't know T-Bone.
Oh, no, lots of nicknames. Nobody
And
remembers.
Jan was,
Real quick, like, when I was over at the Coolman's house, Bussy, I know it was either Christmas or something, but all the people who were over there with the slot machines down in the basement, he would give you coins. I'm gonna say it was like $25 or something, and he'd hand you, he had penny machines, nickel machine, I don't know, you know all the machines they had, your silver dollar, the whole thing. He'd give everybody whatever, let's say I played the quarter machine, I had $25 he gave me, and he said, you don't switch machines, you play that machine until you're out or whatever. It took about 3.5 hours, but it got all the money. But everybody had a machine to play, so he entertained us for 3 hours or so with his slot machines.
I'd like to know if anybody else knows about that place upstairs.
I want to introduce my son Mark, and one of the good reasons that we're here today to pass on this wonderful, wonderful heritage.
Thank you. Thanks for all coming out. I have a couple of stories about my grandfather. Of course, I used to tag along with him. I was born in '63. I was probably about 6, 7 years old, and I would tag around with him through town all the time. And I remember going in through the garage door over here underneath. Was that Reeves?
No, over here was,
Yeah.
I don't know.
There was a
what
big
Rex are.
garage
There's a
door over here. And we used to go through the steel door. There used to be a huge steel door down in the basement. And I always wondered why there was a steel door in the basement. As a kid, and especially as a boy, you're like, this is great. I get to see all this stuff. And we end up in this back room. I think it was underneath here. And in the room, he had a hallway. It was a dark hallway, and all I remember is just like one light in there, so it was always dark. But we'd go into this room. He had this room built down there, a wood room. And he had all of his slot machines would be lined up in there, still on the steel things. Now this was towards the end of when he was doing the slot machines. And so I got to see some of that, and I got to hear some of the stories that he would tell me. And I would follow him around everywhere. I mean, we'd be out in the garden working he had a garden back here, and he had another outbuilding that he worked in. So I would follow him around all the time because I was so interested on hearing these stories. But I don't know if anybody knew, but it was just more than a small town that he was getting money being brought in here. There was connections in Chicago. And they would bring the money out here to actually be laundered through the bookie joint. And he was one of the places that they did it through. And I always, as being a kid, you never thought, okay, it's just a bunch of guys that come out here. Well, it ended up being more like the mob that would come out here and launder their money out here because they could get away from the city. The heat wasn't as bad. They could do it through such a small place, and they wouldn't have to worry about it. Well, I remember him telling me a story about when they were at the house, and my mom and aunt were younger, and two gentlemen had heard that he was were at one of the taverns out in the county that heard that he was doing the bookie, and so they decided they were going to rob him. So they ended up at the house, and they ended up tying everybody up, and kind of pistol whipping my grandpa, trying to get him, to give up the money. Well, the money that he ended up giving up was dirty money. And being that he was in a jewelry store, he always had rings on. Well, he had this ring on. And when they came in to rob him, he took the ring. It had a diamond on it. He took it and he turned it in to the palm of his hand so they wouldn't see it. Well, when the guy told him, put your hands up, obviously he puts his hands up, they see the diamond ring. So what they did is they told him, give me the ring, we want your money. They took off and ended up out in the county somewhere. Well, they went out and blabbed, running their mouth about who they robbed and all this stuff. And I don't know, it was like several months later, these guys show up to see my grandfather, and they asked him about the money, and he says, well, no, the money was taken, but we'll take care of it, we'll get everything taken care of. So they end up showing up at the house, and they said, well, we have something for you. And he goes, well, what is it? And the guy says, well, reach out your hand. He reached out the hand, they stuck the diamond ring in his hand. They found the two guys out in the county, both with bullet in their heads. So those were the stories that I got to hear. I got to hear some of them. It was crazy. I mean, you would never think. Like I said, I was here at the end of it, so I got to see all the slot machines, as they were being sold off, and the pool hall was being shut down, so I got to see all the other stuff, but I got to hear a lot of good stories. But I want to thank everybody for coming out. This is really interesting, and it's nice to hear everybody. Thank you.
I know that there's, yes, Fern?
One more.
Okay.
I'm taking up time here. Knowing Babe, her mother, Babe and,
Did I turn it off?
I don't think I did. I? Well, anyway, I go to their house, and I always wonder, okay, here I'm dealing with the mafia, Charlene's gonna have me shot or something. Bottom line is that I always wondered how we got away with this. I mean, you don't get out of the mob. I think I asked Babe once and Charlene, and they would never talk. We know nothing. It was like, down. But bottom line was, I guess you could answer this. I think he was pulled into Supreme Court every year, questioned by the government. And bottom line was, I said, how'd he get away with it? He was told what to say before he ever got there, is my understanding. You could answer that, but anyway, they'd ask him like 2 questions, he didn't answer, they said, get out of here. So, never did get smart man.
Never went to jail.
There's an article that's been passed around, and it's over here on the board. It's about the grand jury indicting, I don't know, was it 7 people, Charles Russell Kuhlman being one of them, for one-armed bandits, not the bookie, not the horses, not the money, just the slot machines. And he was never in prison, never went to jail, like Vern said. He knew what to say, he claimed the 5th. I don't know what he did, but there was enough money going around, I guess, that paid everybody off, is the way I look at it.
Paid everybody off.
Here's this.
At Christmas, we always had a lot of envelopes. And we had made a lot of deliveries to a lot of people, the chief of police, the committeeman, the mayor. But Dad had one really important job, and I hope y'all won't be offended by this, but one of Dad's jobs to keep the Catholic priests from talking was to keep the Catholic priest in good-looking housekeepers. I won't go any further. That was one of the jobs. Anybody else have something they remember or heard or something?
You know who the walking bookie was in Antioch? Can I mention the name? Jim Horan.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Roger Van Patten. Somebody had mentioned Herman Holbeck. He was one of the in crowd here in Antioch. And he managed the Ben Franklin store, which was on the other side of Reed's drugstore. Well, you know, Antioch, come wintertime, you roll up the streets, there wasn't anybody around. One February, he worked like the devil. Going upstairs, there was an upper room above his store where he kept a lot of his stuff. Well, I think he worked for about 3 weeks carrying stuff out of there. And all of a sudden, one Saturday, I was working for him as a stock boy at the time. I could hear this funny noise. And they're off. What the heck? Well, that went on for about a week and a half. And the owner of the building decided he needed something from the upper room. Boy, was there a flurry of activity. I think Tommy Griffin was there, and I don't know, all the rest of the guys, they were hauling stuff out of there to make sure that when the owner of the building came in, there was no evidence left.
Hey, Sue, you don't have any stories?
Oh, I can tell. Yeah, I can tell you.
Come on, Mabaloo. Wonderful to see you.
Uh-oh, we're in trouble. Mabel's got
Oh, Mabaloo's got stories.
Well, I can remember the first time I was ever in this room, it was my uncle, and he was from Cicero, and he used to come out here and spend the time at my mom and dad's, and then he would bring me in this room, and he'd place his bets. And I did get in the bookie here, and I got one over there. But my story is with telephone lines. Don't you see this halo over my head? And Tommy Griffin was a very, very good friend of mine, and he was very generous, but he never gave me any money. There was never any money exchanged. But I can say that we went to a baseball game, and sat in the second row. We had other things like that, but there was never any money exchanged. Yes.
Sex?
What? What's that? No, and another one that was always very protective of me was Jim Horn. And he was, and he knew what I had done and so forth and what it was happening. But he was the one that really said, "Listen, mind your P's and Q's." You know, that's all I'd say. Wouldn't do anything else but that. But my recollection of the bookies is very, very great. Thank you very much for having this party. It's wonderful.
Come on, people, we gotta have more stories.
Any more stories? This is my cousin Kathy Ibsen Smith, once again here to share her story. She's much younger than all of us.
Yeah.
She has a special story.
Hi, everybody. My parents were Lee and Gert. I don't know if I'm sure everybody knows them, but I just have a little story to tell. Uncle Bussy was very generous. My mom and dad had great stories to tell of how generous and what a great man he was. When I was about 4, he actually gave me a yellow fancy dress. It was the fanciest dress that I had ever seen. And I kept on asking my mom, Gert, every single day, "Mom, can I wear that dress today?" And she'd say, "Kathy, you're just going out to play. Why do you want to wear this dress?" I'm like, "Oh, Mom, it's so pretty, please." She never let me wear this dress. So finally, the one day I got to wear the dress was my kindergarten picture. So everybody, this is my kindergarten picture. Bussy's yellow dress.
That's awesome. There's a few people here in the audience. Oh, Christine?
I can.
Okay. This is my cousin Christine Ibsen Miller. You like that, Smith, Miller? You know.
A lot of names here. My name is Christine Miller. I'm Kathy's sister. And I'm to enlighten you about Bussy is not only known for bringing money into the town, making jobs, carrying a pistola or whatever, but I want to enlighten you that he was a family man too. He cared a great deal about his family. And I was his niece. He looked out for the town. He found homes for people. He helped a lot of people. And one thing that Bussy did was he helped my father. My father was his bodyguard, okay? He would go out and he'd pay my father $100 every night to protect him. Now, I don't know if he needed it or not, but he paid my father. And one night my father came home to my mother and said, "Gert, I can't do this anymore." My father was a big, long man, you know. He could do this. He said, "Gert, I can't do this. I know we need the money, but I'm a talker. And I see a lot of this. I'm afraid. I can't do it anymore. I'm going to spill the beans somewhere." So he never did it again, and Bussy understood that. We had Christmas, every Christmas at Uncle Bussy's house. It was delightful. He was a delightful uncle. And we always played games. As I remember as a little girl, I would be 7 or 8 years old and we'd be playing games. This is to show Uncle Bussy. I'm just showing an image of him. We played one game, I don't know what they called it, but we would all, see, he could get down. He didn't always have to be a big man. He would also play games with his nieces and nephews. We would play a game where we would go through the dining room like a choo-choo train. We'd hang on to the person in front of us, and then somebody would tell somebody a secret, and then pass it all the way down, and the last person, no matter what, would always get slapped. This was the game, and I was 7 years old. So Bussy was the last person in the train, and I was next to Bussy, and we were both set up. Now my father took me over to the side and said, "Okay, Chrissy, when it's time to slap Uncle Bussy, you just haul off and hit him." What? Okay, whatever you say, Dad. Okay, so we all went into the dining room, and then the secret started going down the line, and I'm kind of getting a little nervous here. And then the secret kept going and came to me, And I turned and was going to tell, he thought he was going to get this big secret. Well, I hauled off and nailed his ass so hard. And he stood back and went, so shocked that an 8-year-old girl would hit him. He ran out of that room, never talked to anybody all night long. I was upset. That's my uncle. And then my dad, Aunt Babe, and my mother were all laughing. That'll teach him. I didn't know I was set up. And I was getting a little nervous because my dad said, nobody has ever hit Bussy that hard before. And that is Uncle Bussy.
There are several people in the room here that I really don't know personally, but have an awful lot of stories. One of them is Andy Anderson. Would you like to come up to the mic, please, and share some of your wonderful stories?
Give it a try.
Okay. Did you want to have a seat up here, Andy? Did you want a chair? Here, Roger, could we borrow your phone? Thank you.
Shake a lot.
Somebody else might need it.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Andy built this town.
Here we go. And here's a chair. Is that too high?
Thank you.
Okay. Just make yourself comfortable.
First, I have a question. Does anybody know how old Tommy was when he died?
No. I remember when he died.
I don't know, he died pretty young.
He was in his 50s.
He was in his 50s?
He was in his 50s.
He was shot
He
from the
passed
back of
away
his front door.
Christmas night.
Yeah. Well, I was their coal mine runner here all the time, about 15 or 16 years old. My dad had the radio shop right across the street, so they always saw me climbing, running wires for antennas and stuff at that time. So they got me to do this. And Tommy, like she said, was always a very gracious guy. But he did give me $5 every now and then, cash. And with that, you could buy a brand new air rifle over there at Williams Department Store. Fantastic, you know. And they'd call me to get the lines in. They made deals with all of the apartment owners up here that had phones, and we cut into all their lines, and they'd make deals with them where they'd pay your phone bill no matter what it was, and don't stay on there a long time when you're on your phone. And about 3 days would pass, and I'd get the call, get down here and get these phones out, we got a tip. So 3 days of work running all these lines and scampering up the sides of the buildings and down again and stuff and get them all out. Then another couple of days, put them back in again. I was all over these roofs all the time in here. But all those guys were all good to me all the time. I was only 15, 16 years old, but then they took me one time, of course my dad was repairing radios and the TVs that they had at that time. He said we had a service call out on North Avenue. So we went out there, and it was a big 2-story White House, and I carried the tube caddy and stuff, and we go in there, and there's just one guy there, and then Tommy arrived. And you could see the place wasn't being used. There was no furniture hardly or anything. There was just a kitchen table with some chairs and stuff. And they introduced me to this guy. And I was a little guy, and he was as small as I was. Only he wore a nice silk suit and a hat and everything. He introduced me, and he gave me a wry smile, you know. And he just seemed something funny about him. But I got to know him, and he was really good to me all the time. So one day I asked Tom, I says, where's Earl? I ain't seen him around in a long time. And he says, Well, he was just here for a visit from New York. He was hiding out, and I said, "Oh, hiding out? Oh, what?" He was a hitman. I'm sitting there, I thought, even then, as young as I was, I knew what a hitman was. And, but he watched me and my climbing and stuff as Earl, and he kept saying, he always called me, "Hey kid." He said, "Hey kid, you can really get up and down these buildings nice, can't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I watch what I'm doing, but I get up and down there." But that was a funny question, you know. And later on, a few days later, I saw him. He said, "I saw you up there on the roof. Man, you can really get around up there on them places." All of a sudden it dawned on me. I know what he wants me for. So I decided against that. But all I gotta say, they were really good guys to me, and everybody that came in and went out, whatever, you know, they never bothered anybody that I know of. So, anyway, that's about all I got to say.
Thanks, Andy. You okay? Oh, careful.
I'll make it.
Okay.
Thank you.
David, can you swing around a little bit? I'm going to see if I can encourage. There's a gentleman here, his name is,
Whoa, we got a nut.
Kelly, can you turn the lights on in here?
what?
Turn the lights on.
Okay. There's a gentleman over here by the name of Jim Harvey. Unfortunately, Jim, I've never met you. My name is Bonnie. I'm Bussy's daughter. And I understand that you have some fantastic stories. Would you please share a few?
I don't know if I want to.
You have a couple
Give a quick
easy
story.
ones. Just a few off the tip of your tongue.
You don't have to get up, you can stay
You
right
can
there.
stay right there.
Well, to me, Tommy Griffin was the finest man that ever hit Antioch. He did more for this town than anybody could ever realize. I always remember when Tommy and I would go out for breakfast in the morning. We'd stop at a restaurant across the street with dear Mrs. Walsh, waited on table. And Tommy would not take a table until he knew that Mrs. Walsh was at his. And he did so much for that poor elderly lady who was waiting on tables every day of the week for many, many years. And that's the way he was with people. And those that had anything against him were ones that he didn't want to have anything else to do with them. But he was a great guy, and I always think the world of Tommy when he passed away. I was with him on Christmas Eve night with my daughter and family. And Rosa brought him home from the hospital to be with us for Christmas dinner. And that was the last I saw him when I said goodnight to him that night. He passed away that night. Anybody that's got anything to say about Tommy Griffin, they either knew him well or they didn't know him at all. So, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in this group that will agree with me. And I remember nights when the big flatbed truck would come in town and some of us would be right sitting on the rock by the Walt Becky's
Barber shop.
he had a place to sit on the railing right there. You'd sit there and see what's going on in town. When that big flatbed truck pulled into town, People like two or three fellas, heavy set fellas from around town were on the trucks. Going in from store to store, taking those slot machines out, throwing them on that flatbed truck. Then a couple days later, my same group was coming back into town, picking up all the slot machines back onto the truck, putting them in the stores again. Time to start business. Those are all good, very good times in Antioch.
Was anybody brave enough to put them under a sidewalk? I keep hearing that.
Pardon me?
There was one in front of the bakery.
Okay, they
And
were
there was
on,
one in front of the.
they were on the sidewalks then.
In front of Holbeck's. Yeah, and Elton was, yeah, in front of. Well, yeah, there was about 4 of them right on the sidewalk. Really? Yeah, really.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you so much. There was just one story, I think Vern said, or somebody said about Bussy and Tommy and that going to Florida. Dad and a bunch of his cronies heard that Florida was going to legalize gambling, and this was in the late 40s. And a bunch of them headed off to the Florida Keys. One key in particular was Crawl Key, just north of Marathon. And they were so sure that this was going to pass that they bought about 40 acres of land. They hired an architect to pull up a plan on how they're going to build this most wonderful yacht club casino environment down on the Florida Keys. Well, Dad had taken his share, and he was in charge of building the first motel. And then after that, there were going to be homes, and there was going to be a yacht club, and so on and so forth. And they ended up calling it Valhalla. Dad, after he built the motel, guess what? Gambling did not pass in the state of Florida. Nobody else in the group continued on in any of the building that they were going to do, any of the plans or anything. And it is still in existence today, Valhalla Beach Motel. My sister and I and our families go down there on occasion, and let me tell you, walking into this motel is like walking into the early 50s. It hasn't changed. And it brings back wonderful memories to us. And I'm not sure how often Dad had to get away to Florida, but I know after a good number of years that him and Mom would, and Shar and I, as little kids, we would go down there, and we would spend quite a few months down there. Then we'd come back, and so Shar and I were always in and out of the school systems, and that's just the way our life was. We thought everybody did this. Just as a very young kid, so it had to be in the mid to late 40s, just like Shar says, getting woke up in the middle of the night, our pajamas on, and Dad says, we're going to Canada. And that's the way we lived our life, and it's just, it was, for us, it was normal.
We didn't know any better.
Yeah. There's someone else here, Wally Delaney. He's lived in town all of his life. One of my best buds, and he's got some stories.
I sort of volunteer for this. I don't know whether it's going to be a good idea or not. Gary? Aha, okay. My mom and dad came from the city, came out here when I was 3 years old, and Dad was pretty closed-mouthed about how we got out here, but over the years I was able to piece a lot of stuff together that sort of made sense. I was raised and born in Oak Park until I was 3, and then my parents had a lot of stuff going on in Cicero. My grandfather was the first motorcycle policeman in the town of Cicero, and my grandfather also was a plumbing contractor. And they used to run bottles of booze in the slot machines across town whenever they'd have the cops chasing after them. You know, that was one story I got from them.
And lo and behold, at 3 years old, we moved out to the city and rented a house from Bernie Thompson. And that was over on Felton subdivision. Somehow or another, Bernie Thompson and my dad were connected somewhere along the line, but I don't know how that happened, you know. So I was raised pretty much with Jack Thompson. There's a lot of family pictures between him and I together. We were both a couple of bondheads. And then he had 2 other brothers and then his sister. But I remember many weekends and times spending out at their lake on Linden Lane, and that was a castle in those days. They had a boathouse with a pool table on it. They had probably one of the neatest looking ceramic tile bathrooms you'd ever want to see, with a big piano in it. I mean, it was considered a mansion in those days. And they had a house on top of the garage, and people lived there. They had Great Danes for dogs, so my dad ended up with one. When my mom and dad came out from the city, they bought Shunnison's Plumbing Company, which I don't know too much about that, but there was probably a half a dozen guys that worked for him at the time. A guy by the name of Swede Bolton. I don't know if you know the Bolton name. Palmer's, Jack Palmer's dad. So he went into business there and changed it to Walter Delaney Plumbing and Heating. As the years progressed, he got out of that, went out working somewhere else, but he had people like Bobby Deemer start out with him. I'm talking Gene Deemer, I believe it was Gene. Wasn't that his dad's name? Yeah. I don't know, let's see, where else can I begin? There's all kinds of things going on.
Bernie Thompson had a very beautiful home.
Oh, yeah.
We're personal friends of theirs now, and it's kept
People
up.
that bought it and fixed it up.
Yeah. Oh, you guys have got it?
No, friends of ours have
Oh, okay.
bought it and fixed it up. It's gorgeous.
I've been back there many times, but it's been years. Did they retain any of what it was?
Bernie Thompson helped with the down payment for my folks so they could get the resort.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah. Yeah. That's about all I got. I mean, I could tell you a lot more. Oh, one other thing, Anderson's. At one point in time, I was married to Alasko. So Tom Anderson, and I think it was your brother Andy. Iowa Alasko they had an old stoker where they used to burn coal. It was one of the last houses. So she got a hold of Andy, and they came out, no tools, no rulers, a broom handle. Measured everything, come out a week or later, and put it all in and fit like a glove. You remember that, Tom? Yeah. Maybe Lou, didn't my mom work for you?
Oh, yes, we sure believe it. In fact, we had the same initials, MD.
That's right, yeah.
And you had to write everything when you did the word and going. So I started using the word Gus, G-U-S.
That's right, yeah.
It was a nickname, and I got called Gus for many, many years.
I think that's about all I got, folks. Anybody else?
Yeah, there is, but I was looking for him to walk up there. Come on, people. I know you got stories.
I was just giving hugs and kisses to Jerry. Come on up, Jerry. Come on, come on. Jerry looks the part. This looks the part.
Well, she said she was going to dress up too. I think she was just telling me that for
Jerry's one of the owners here and was instrumental in opening up this room. And I mean, he's heard many stories over the last many months. Derek, where are you? He's in back. I'm in the back.
He's in the back.
Come on up, Derek. Are you related to Derek?
Yeah, he's my father-in-law.
Oh, father-in-law. Derek here was helping Jerry and then the rest of the fellas here revamp this room into what is now a wonderful room. But share a little bit of the information of what you found in your throes of redoing it. And
He would be the guy that explained it all.
First of all, it took a lot of work. We thought this was supposed to be a lot of little rooms when we took over. It was a sweatshirt factory when we bought it. And
the embroidery place
Yeah,
used to
that's
have
right.
a storefront.
embroidery place, and we thought these little rooms were supposed to be here. They weren't. So it took us months to tear them out, and three very distinct layers, probably from the early 20s and then maybe the late 40s and then sometime in the 60s. that they were plywooded over and false walls built and everything. And we were stunned. We couldn't believe it. There was a huge ventilation system here, some very, very fancy lighting in 1920 that we found. There was 3 different ceilings. When we took over, the ceiling was about 8-9 feet, but it's really 14 feet now. Now that we went up to the beams, as you can see, it's a very, very solid building. It's 3 bricks wide, which is a lot of brick, and it took forever. And where's that guy that put in all the wires? Andy. It took us a long time to take all those wires out. There were wires everywhere in this building. And there probably still are. Some of them we just gave up and thought we'd leave them. We did find the pass-through. It was all nicely done in oak and everything. It was in the back of the girls' bathroom, where the girls' bathroom is now. And you could come, and it was a solid wall. This was all solid when we started our work. And our contractors cut in between the bars, cut the opening over from the main bar. But we actually found a passageway that was built into the wall of the bathroom. So I guess, I don't know, you had to go to the bathroom to get into this part, but you could clearly get back to this part. No?
Yeah, well, there wasn't always a bathroom there.
Oh, wasn't always a bathroom?
I don't remember what it was, but I remember even being a kid and coming through, and he'd bring us through there. It wasn't a bathroom, but it was a passageway that you had to get through around to get in here.
I always thought it was an extension of the drugstore.
Right. Everybody thought it was like going into the drugstore or whatever. It was something else. You didn't know it was there, but it was never part of the bathroom.
It is very confusing, and of course, this floor is much more open than the basement and the apartments above, and the basement is a labyrinth. It's absolutely crazy down there. Now maybe you can help us out. We did find a couple of interesting things. We found where there had been an elevator that went basement to the top floor at one time. Probably in the late 1900s. We have no... Pardon?
They had elevators then?
Well, yeah, we don't know what powered it, but yeah, there was an elevator shaft. Probably, yeah. Yeah, probably a dumbwaiter of a 6 foot by 6 foot.
Yeah, he had that blocked off.
Yeah. And that was an unanticipated find for us, so we had to tear that out and put proper ceiling and floor and everything. And of course, we had a boiler about the size of a school bus in the basement here. That was a very big challenge to get out. But once we got down to it, we were amazed what a lovely, lovely room we had here. Now, where the bar is now, there was actually a bar area there. We don't know.
It was like maybe half the size, if not, the opening was about half the size maybe. And the countertop that you see, the bar top, was like a countertop height. That's where you placed your bets. Back there, that's where the men were.
The phone banks.
Yeah, and the radios, of course, all over, but the radios, the telephones and everything were over that area mainly.
Didn't you guys find too something that said about a horse on something on the wall?
Yeah, we did find a lot of notes written on the wall, but they must have been short of papers, with racetrack information on it, phone numbers, and all that sort of thing. And a lot of that was back along the wall where the gentleman with the blue shirt is standing there. There was quite a bit of writing and stuff on the walls. You got to realize we had to peel off 3 layers of walls to get down to the original wall. The room itself was knotty pine, top to bottom. We saved a couple pieces downstairs if you'd like them. So that was nice, and very, very sturdy. And you know, it's truly a pleasure to have such an historical building here.
I can remember the apartment above being a kid, I can remember being upstairs in that apartment.
It was beautiful. It was all built in, the kitchen was all built in, and the dining room had built-in cabinets, you know, the old-fashioned kind.
Well, you're lucky, because it's still the same.
I thought they made it into different individual apartments.
There are 4 apartments upstairs.
It was all one.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
My goodness. One of our tenants has been here for 24 years.
Well, this goes back to, I want to say in the early 50s.
When I met with Ainsley, you introduced me to somebody once. Last time I was over by the Historical Society, she said the same thing. She was saying about it was one apartment upstairs.
Yeah. Oh, that's Jan.
And there was someone else that was telling us that. Remember you were doing lunch with her? She brought lunch to you.
Oh, Bemis?
Yeah, maybe it was Ruth. Yeah, she was saying the same thing. It was one big apartment that she was in.
I do have a question. Was the steel door still in the basement? There was a big, huge sliding steel.
It's right there. The big steel door now is up there.
Now, see, when you came in through the garage door, it looked like a normal garage downstairs. And then there was this big steel door that actually covered the one part of the wall where we actually had to walk through. And that room that you said it had was like a labyrinth down there. It had, he had made these walls down there. They were kind of made in. And I remember where he stored the stuff. But at one time, that was used when it got hot. They would take everything to the basement. And they closed that big steel door down there. And so nobody knew that what was on the other side of that steel door. They just saw that it was a garage that you pulled a vehicle in or whatever. But that's the way it was, I remember as a kid.
That does explain a lot, and actually, we go out onto the sidewalk a few feet, this building does. So that was kind of amazing. Yes, sir?
Yeah, Bonnie, were the walls, they had sliding walls at one time, and I don't know if that was after the era or in the 60s or in that era, but the bookies had these walls that would slide up. I would assume they were like 3-foot sections, and they were like a picture.
Yeah,
and they
Charlie,
slide up,
yeah.
and all the bookie information, if they're getting rated, they just slid it down, you walk in and it'd just be a regular room. You wouldn't see
Yeah,
anything.
Char had alluded to a little bit of that. I vaguely remember, it was like I call it a tote board. There was one on top of the other with pulleys. And you could pull down, and that's where they would put the races, the track. Everyone had their track name on it, and then all the races for that particular day and what time and the jockey and the odds. And then, of course, the current races were the higher ones, and then when the horse won, they pulled that down, and the next race would go up. And it was a constant thing of changing those tote boards, and of course the name. It was all done like a chalkboard and chalk. You know, it wasn't anything permanent. But I'm not sure, like you said, they could disappear into the back of the seats or anything. That I don't remember.
I never seen it, but I've heard that's what they did. If they were getting rated, they just slide these down, you'd walk in, you wouldn't see anything really.
Yeah, I'm not sure of that, but it's been interesting. Yes, Mary?
I was wondering, I just had questions about the bombing. If you could tell more stories about the bombing. When did that happen? Do they know who did it? Was anybody?
The bombings?
Blackie Sullivan.
June 1949, and there were 3 bombs, Fox Lake, Ingleside, and here, is that what? And Pergenzers.
They were all bombed at the same time?
Within the same week.
I made copies of the articles that Ainsley gave me, and there should be somewhere around here. If you guys want to take a copy home, the actual newspaper article that kind of explains it.
That didn't phase this place.
It was a 3-pounder. The bomb was a 3-pounder.
And the drum, like I said earlier, was so frightened that she spent a week in bed.
You know, eventually they found out that it was Blackie Sullivan, a mobster from Chicago, who was wanting to put Lake County out of business and take it, have the Chicago mob take it over. And he ended up going to jail, but it was a guy, I don't know his first name, but it was Blackie Sullivan that ultimately got pinned with that bombs. So that's all I know.
Anybody get hurt? Was anybody hurt?
I don't think anybody was hurt that I remember, maybe, but I don't remember anything about that.
Blown out of bed.
Okay. Thanks, Jerry. Anything else, sir?
No, we're just excited to learn as much as we can about this building. It's so exciting to us that it has such a history.
Yeah, and we're glad that you're here and you did what you did to share it.
Well, we would like to know, how was the food back then?
Hey, when Weasel had it, it was really good. After Dad had to close everything down, then Weasel, those people that know Weasel, he then took over the tavern, and the food, of course, it was Italian. And I honestly cannot remember the food when Dad had it. I think it was generally, excuse the term, barf.
Nobody come in to eat, huh?
I'm not sure, except the steak and turkey. Yeah, so I don't know exactly what was on the menu. I just know New Year's Eve was a big night here at Bussy's Tavern, the lounge. Mom and I don't know, some of the other friends put on a big spread for New Year's Eve, and that Bussy's Lounge was jumping on New Year's Eve. Mother would make big roasters full of beans and ham, and
Miller High Life girl would come and dance on the bar.
yeah.
Wow.
And it was the hot place in the hot town tonight.
Think
so-
she'll be here this year?
I think she fell off the moon.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
These are the copies of the article from the bombing, if anybody's
Okay.
interested. And I got some more.
Mary, my cousin Mary Pullman. Dad he was one of 4 brothers and 1 sister. And you'll see some of the pictures flash over. Mary Kuhlman's father was the youngest. His name was Bill. And he and all the brothers worked with Dad throughout all the years. They did many other things too. I know Mary's dad, Bill, had a roller rink. And so, Mary, do you have some stories?
No.
Come on.
Real.
No?
Come on, Mary.
Outside of just Daddy and Chick Miller used to work on the machines,
Okay.
the one-armed bandits or whatever. And when I was about 8 years old, I went to school at St. Peter's School, and I came into town by Grandma's. Daddy was here, and I walked into the tavern, and I was looking for Dad. And so therefore he says, well, he's in the back. So I come walking in the back. Next thing you know, Daddy's grabbing my arm, and out the side door we go. But then there was this big board, and had all these little horses, and stuff like that. So, but yeah, Daddy worked for Bussy for quite a few years, and of course we had the roller rink and in the other town, and so yeah.
Yeah. I remember the roller rink.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was a great time. Vern, I know you have,
Probably forgot.
I want to give a little story on what happened probably a little later than what happened here with the gambling in Antioch. I think Andy mentioned about the phones going in. I was with a phone company. So on the 50s or in that era, when we'd go out, you only put 1 phone in a house at any time in the 50s. That didn't happen. They didn't have colored phones or anything. But anyway, if I got a phone 2 going in, I thought that was strange. It was very strange. Anyway, my manager would come up to me and say, go put these phones in. And just about that time when the Lake County was getting a little rough on gambling, what happened, I think Andy talked about it, there's a farm out here in North Avenue. It's still out there at this time, way out on the other side of 45. You go into a beautiful farm, and the washroom said men and women. Now, if you ever go into a farm that says men and women, it doesn't make much sense. But anyway, what would happen is they had to move. Every week, they would be in this farm here, they'd be in Lake Villa, they'd be in Fox Lake. They had to move around because they didn't want to get caught for gambling. Well, anyway, I had a phone request to put 2 phones in off of Loon Lake. So I go out there, and they told me to go to this tavern out there and see where they want to mount it. I mean, you know, you in your house, you want that phone in the kitchen or something, right, you know? So I go out there, and there's nothing in the place. Not a thing. I said, where do I put the phones? And so I go to this tavern, I says, where do I put the phone? 6 guys are sitting at the bars watching me. What is this guy doing out here? I said, well, somebody said, I gotta ask where the phone goes. We don't know nothing. So I take it back in, I said, I can't install nothing because there's nobody out there. So I ignored it. 2 weeks later, I get the same order. Now my manager says, hey, let me know if this is suspicious. He was in on it, he was paid to do all these things. There was so much going on, if you were in the right department, you got paid off. Bottom line was, I went out there and I said, see these people, I went out again, it says put them any place. Okay? That's fine with me, so I put them in. But that was one of the places that they would move in, move out, and so on. And now we're talking about Tommy Griffin being the nice guy. Tommy Griffin, I installed some phones someplace, but probably that same one. And they said, go see Fee Weiss. Now, his name wasn't mentioned, but somehow he had to see quite hard on here. And I think Fee and all these people were involved here, but I'm a dumb guy, I don't know. They said, go see Fee, just say, you know, you put the phones in or something. What is that about? So I go out, and the guy that did all the work with the phones around, I won't mention his name, but anyway, he did all the good bookies phones jobs here. And I seen him that morning, and I says, hey, I'm supposed to see Fee Weiss. He says, meet me at Sea Point Harbor, you know, at 10 o'clock, we'll have coffee. And so we go out there. Fee gives us $20, $10 for me, and him $20. I was always ticked off. I mean, you know, hey, if I would have won a loan, I would have got the whole buck. But anyway, there was guys with the company that tried to get in with the syndicate here, and they actually offered to do special jobs for them, and they were very particular. They would not allow you, you know, they invited you in. You didn't invite yourself into it. So that happened. And the management of the telephone company and so on around here knew what was going on. And like a lot of people here, there was a lot of strange things happening. But, you know, they moved enough so they wouldn't get in trouble. That's what it was all about. So that's what was happening. And, I will say, around Christmas time, the sheriff of Lake County, good old sheriff, he never went out and bothered these bartenders, you know, the owners here. Didn't get bothered. His deputies would go out, walk in the place, you put the money in the pot, and that's it. You don't get harassed. So this actually happened, and now I'll tell you a story. I was like one time in a bar, and they had gambling going on, and they had the cigar boxes with money in there for horses. So you bet on the horse, and you sat there. All of a sudden, they got a phone call. We're being raided. I'm watching the owner of the place. He keeps serving drinks, keeps taking the bets. I says, why don't you get the bets and get out of here? You know, take that money out of the place. He says, don't worry about it. The police come in. Lake County cops come in. They raid the place. Grab all these cigar boxes. They go running out. Now get this. It's around election time. All of a sudden, the front of the Waukegan newspaper, we raided like 40 places in Lake County, and we got all this money, blah, 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 you know, just before election. So, that sheriff did a hell of a job, didn't he? These guys are really following up on what's going on in his area. So anyway, after election, on the very back of the Waukegan News, a little article says, we forgot to get a search warrant, so we had to get all the money. So These are the things that happen at occasion.
Thanks, everyone. I can't thank all of you so much for your wonderful stories, whether we're here to tell them or to listen to them and just enjoy this moment together. I appreciate it so much. I want to just say, unless you have something else to say, I'm just going to close it down and just we'll all mingle and we'll share some more stories and just enjoy ourselves. I can't thank you enough.
One more thing before everybody moves, okay? Could you have, could you all look this way up here? We're going to have David, our photographer, just kind of go across everybody so we can get a picture on that DVD of everybody that's here, okay? How's that sound? Listen, if your face is hidden behind somebody else's face, move your face or move their face, okay? So we can at least see your face.
Is this face off?